we can start the session and they can join happily.
Yes, that's fine by me.
Yeah. Okay. So, good morning to all of you, and once again, welcome to the second webinar of this webinar series that we are organizing under the disinformation misinformation project that we have been doing with the support of the US Consulate, Kolkata. So, welcome you once again. Today's session will be taken by Dr. Swati Bhattacharjee. So let me just briefly introduce her. So Swati Bhattacharjee is Senior Assistant Editor, Editorial Page, Anandabhaja Patrika. She is the former General Secretary of South Asian Women in Media Forms, India Chapter, and Member Regional Council. She has a PhD in Social Science from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and MSc in Media Research from University of Stirling, UK. She also has an MA in Philosophy from Jadavpur University, Kolkata. She was a Fulbright Fellow 2010-11 at Abdul Latif Jamil Poverty Action Lab, MIT. Dr. Bhattacharjee received East-West Center Jefferson Fellowship 2006 and is an active member of EWC alumni in India. There are several other feathers to her cap. I'm very sure that most of the participants are aware of it. The broad theme of Swati's journalism has been poverty reduction. She also focuses on health education, women's self-help movements, women's land rights, and other issues of gender justice. She has authored and edited several books, both in English and in Bengali. So without further ado, I leave it to you, ma'am. Over to you. And today's session is going to be on online trolling and workplace harassment. Thank you so much. Hope you have a fruitful session.
Thank you, Sucharita. Thank you to all members of CUTS for organizing this wonderful series in partnership with SOM and also with the US Consulate, the American Center, and the East-West Center. It is so nice to meet such a lovely group of journalists, and across India and also in some countries abroad. It's really a great opportunity to find some common ground, to go over the things about which we feel strongly, and examine where it is that we stand and where it is that we need to go. So, and we are meeting only about 12 days before the Women's Day this year. And this is the time when we all sharpen our pens or click our mouses to write down all those women's stories and the stories that we have in mind. Some of them are celebratory, but a few others, many others, I'm afraid, are to do with the struggles that women still are undergoing. The struggles, the fight that they do to stand up against discrimination, against prejudice, against violence. And while these are extremely important stories, I'm often reminded by what a journalist friend of mine, Nupur Basu, a veteran journalist in India, what she had said in an informal conversation. She had said that, you know, we women journalists, we often miss our own stories. Now, this is something that has stayed with me, and it came back to me very, very strongly during the Me Too movement in 2018, when the entire gamut of repression, oppression, the kind of violence and abuse, indignity that women journalists have to face in their own workplace sort of burst forth. In the subcontinent of in South Asia, as well as in the Eastern Asian countries, we saw that the Me Too movement happened in a wide range of professions. There were academics, there were films and performing arts, and news media. in a very big way. Women came out and talked strongly and unambiguously of the kind of treatment that they were getting. And many of them had left the profession, and many of others who had stayed on, but even after 18 years, 20 years, were fighting with the trauma for no other reason but that they wanted to be journalists. So, has the scenario changed much? After about 2-3 years, we cannot see that there has been a lot of ground level changes. But there is certainly a heightened awareness of what is happening. Nobody denies it today the way they used to trivialize it and normalize it some years before. So, and also taking advantage of this heightened awareness of a time when people are more open to discussing the sort of problems that women face, the gender-based violence that even women journalists who are supposed to write about violence on women, on other women, they also have to cope with this in their own workplace. So taking advantage of that window, as women associations of women journalists, we got together to do studies on what the situation is. We know that these are sort of additions to a long series of studies that have been going on. But I think that when we take all these studies together, they give us a kind of a window, an opportunity to look methodically and seriously at the pattern of abuse and violence that is happening with women in the media. Now, since I am already talking in a forum of journalists, I probably don't need to explain why this is so important. We each have felt the kind of pressure which is created, the mental pressure, the psychological pressure, the emotional burden, the kind of self-doubt, self-questioning, which is created by workplace harassment. And similarly, I think most of us have also felt this new phenomenon of online trolling. Digital world has given us a great deal. For women, they have, opened up many new possibilities. For journalists, it has opened up unprecedented, unimagined avenues of self-expression. And women have used them to create platforms where they can speak out. The Me Too movement itself was largely a digital media-based movement. But just like the streets, this actual physical street outside where you can walk to your freedom, but where you also face a whole lot of assault and unwanted attention. So also in online trolling, we found that there has been a we face really vitriolic attacks. And on those also in the recent years, in last 5-6 years, there have been some studies, some attempt to look at what has been happening. And online trolling, though it is targeted towards political dissidents, towards minorities, towards others, many others, groups of people, they are very gender targeted. So here again, women are one of the major targets of trolls. There can be studies across the world have shown that women journalists are prime targets of trolls. So today, we will start by looking at some of the figures that we already have, only in order to understand the problem. Because I know that despite everything, I'm saying I know because we recently did a study on sexual harassment in West Bengal, and in the course of that study, The researchers who were engaged by SOM, by South Asian Women in Media, spoke to many, many women. Women journalists. We total talked to about 90 journalists, 36 were interviewed very intensely. So we know that, many journalists still feel that it is a personal problem, that I could not adjust, I could not cope with it, I could not deal with the situation, something must be wrong with me. This feeling of almost self-alienation and sort of brooding and how will I go out and face the world? That kind of doubt is still very deep in even in the minds of women who are politically aware and quite strong personalities. So I think that one of the things that we can do today is to start by looking at the overall pictures of workplace harassment and online trolling. Now, I have made two different presentations on this, or rather two sections, because though both of these are crimes, cyber crimes, gender crimes, and impact is also the same on women, whether it's online trolling or whether it's workplace harassment. The kind of emotions which they evoke on us are similar. But still, I think that their contexts are slightly different. And how we cope with them, how we react to them, what we should do to protect ourselves, that also, I feel, it's my personal view, are slightly different. So first, I will look at workplace harassment. And we will stop a little bit, have a discussion. And then we will start to look at the online trolling presentation. And once again, of course, I think many of you who are digitally more active than I am, because I've always been, and I'm still in the print media. Digital is something that I do along with my work, but I know that many of you here are working at digital platforms primarily. I hope some of you also do, you're working in misinformation, disinformation problem areas. So you probably know technologically much better on trolling and how it happens. So I'm also looking forward to learning from you on that score. But I will start with the gender aspect of both these cyber crimes. And I will also try to relate to the problem of journalism. Remember that when we talk about these problems, about women journalists being affected by online trolling, by workplace harassment, we are just not talking about our problems. It is a part of a wider problem of gender violence, gender-based violence. So there is a connection there. There is a story there. These are our stories, but these are also the stories of millions of women. And we are their voices, as we should be in the media. So let me start by sharing, and at any point, if any of you wish to come in and offer your remarks, please feel absolutely free to do so. I think of my role more as a facilitator of the discussion today, rather than a lecturer or any resource person or any such thing. I'm here only to, to start the discussion, and hope that you will join, each of you will join whenever you feel you have something to say. So with that, let me start sharing screen. Here. All of you can see this?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, so this is our topic today, and we first go to workplace harassment and then to online trolling. How do I move to the next slide?
Ma'am, you can use the arrow.
Yeah, I am using the arrow, but it's not moving. Let me see. Just a minute.
Shall I share it?
Yes, please, if that is okay. Let me see once more if I can do this. Yeah, now it's coming. So let us briefly look at the prevalence of sexual harassment at the workplace. And let us start with a study by IFG. So this is a study on gender-based violence at work. That is the name of the study, gender-based violence at work. And this was done in November 2017. So for some reason, I'm having a problem changing the slides. Maybe I should stop and you can start.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, I'll
Sure.
just stop the share. Right. Okay, yes, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so as you can see, this is a real cross-country study. So 50 countries, 400 women journalists. And what do we see? Nearly half of them have actually suffered gender-based violence in their work. And 44% had suffered online abuse. This is a thing that, I mean, look at the extent of the problem, and this is something which we will find recurring again and again in most studies. It's very interesting to note that different studies have, they have been conducted by different agencies, some more formally, more rigorously, some less formally, less rigorously, some only online responses, some actual physical interviews, but the results are very, very close. That is something which really strikes us, which shows that there is a pattern underlying all of this. And this pattern becomes clear. I mean, this is the start of the pattern, and I'm only drawing your attention to some of the salient facts. One is that nearly half of the women actually admit that they have faced some kind of harassment, some kind of abuse. And 44% have suffered online abuse. Remember, this is 2017. So since then, digital connections have been going up every day. And all kinds of apps and other digital devices are also coming up every day. But even then, 44% had suffered trolling. 2/3 of the women who had suffered gender abuse at the workplace did not make a formal complaint. And this is not just India, not just a South Asian country, this is in Western countries as well. And of those who did complain, 85% were unhappy. They did not believe that proper justice was done. Let's see the next slide. Okay, now this is a study that happened after the Me Too movement in India. You know that the Me Too movement in Indian media in 2018, quite a few heads rolled. For the first time, even very influential, very important top editors and chief reporters, they had to resign or they had to submit. They were suspended or they had to submit investigations. So at this point of time, two associations of women journalists in India. One was this, the Network of Women in Media, and India, and they associated with Gender at Work, and they together did this study on creating safe workplaces, prevention and redressal of sexual harassment in media, and their study was published in 2020 on women's. Let's look at the results, what they found. Next slide, please. Yeah, so they did an online survey across India. They got 465 media women, and it was entirely online. And here they found over a third, 36% of the respondents saying that they have experienced sexual harassment. So the last study we found 50%, this study is, that was half, this is 1/3, which is still significant. Between 1/3 to 50%, if somebody says that this is the amount of women who experience personally, who have experienced abuse, then that is very significant. And here you find that more than half did not report it to anyone. And of those who approached, 70% were not satisfied. So very few actually approaching an internal committee or any other formal forum for any kind of redressal, and even those who have approached them are very, very dissatisfied. Most of them are dissatisfied, which again goes to show why women do not complain. So you can already see how this pattern of abuse, silence, and in case of speaking out, even more awful experience, how that is taking place. So the next slide, please. Now we are going to the third study. Next slide, please. This is a study that we have done, South Asian Women in Media. We have done this study. Ours was a more focused. We were not interested so much in, getting a lot of respondents. We wanted to focus and do a qualitatively intense study. So we focused only on one region, one state, West Bengal, and we interviewed about 90 men and women on sexual harassment. We did both interviews and held focus group discussions. Our report came out in Women's Day last year, 2021. And Samhita, which is an NGO which is working on sexual harassment prevention and giving justice for quite a few years. They do a lot of trainings on this. They had partnered with us for this. So the next slide, please. Once again, more than half the women we have surveyed. So just like IFG was doing it at a very wide base. So 50 countries, more than 400 women. And we are doing in a small sample, 90 journalists, and about half of them women. But of all these women, they revealed that they had faced some kind of sexual harassment at the workplace during their career. And they knew, and even those who were not saying that they had experienced, they knew of cases where sexual harassment was taking place. Prevalence, we should have no doubt. I don't think any of you have much doubt that it takes place. Though I have known some women who say things like that, I have been in the profession for so many days, I have never found anything like that. And I've often wondered whether they are really aware what sexual harassment means. And or whether they are not, deliberately ignoring instances around them. For me, it is very hard to miss. I do not understand how it can be missed. So next slide, please. Now see that 33% stated that in their organization, there is no policy. So they know that there is no policy. And because we also spoke to HR managers in different organizations, we also know that there are hardly any policies in place. Though it is now mandatory. In India, we had a law in 2013 which says that all organizations which employ more than 10 women have to have a certain system in place for redressal of sexual harassment. But once again, this is a pattern which you will see across all studies, that anything between 1/3 and half women will say that they are not even aware. Even men, both will say that they are not aware whether there is, that there is no such policy. And some of them do not even know whether there's such a policy or not. Now remember that the law that we have, that stipulates not only that you should have a policy, but also that you should publicize, you should hold regular interactions, training workshops, awareness sessions to let people know that there is such a policy and that there is a committee to take care of grievances. Most organizations, practically, we have hardly found any organization which actually does so. So even if there are sexual harassment policies, prevention policies, and the internal complaint committees in place, if 30% don't even know about that, what is the use? So this is again something that we have to look at, that even where the law may be followed, in spirit, in words, the word of the law may be followed, there may be some kind of committee, but the spirit of the law is not being followed. Because the women journalists don't even know that such a policy is there. Okay. And can we go to the next slide, please? But before that, let me also ask you, some of you, do you know whether the organizations that you work for have either a sexual harassment policy in place, or this internal committee, some kind of complaints committee in place to address grievances? And what is the experience of the women journalists with these committees, these forums? Anyone?
You can just unmute yourself and respond. Any feedback from the participants?
Actually, we have the organization policy regards with the sexual harassment in Sri Lanka. When workplace, we don't have the policies like this.
Oh, so there is no law or there is no guideline saying that all workplaces should have a sexual harassment policy, prevention policy. Okay, right. Well, so that is, a huge gap there. And here we have a law, but it is not being followed, so it's still a gap. So the internal committee or the internal complaints committee is a group of people, though it's called internal committee. It is stipulated by law that certain external people external to the organization should also be present in the committee. So this committee is supposed to be the go-to forum where which women can approach, and they are supposed to maintain confidentiality and give all kinds of protection to women who seek redressal. But what we find actually is that even though, 60% stated that were unsure, either said that they have no committee, or they're saying that they don't know about any committee. So only about 40% know that there is a committee. But even where they know that there is a committee, there is overwhelmingly a feeling that the committee is constituted by people who are close to the owners, and that it will act not independently or fairly, but it will act in a manner which suits the owners. And even in our personal experiences, those of us who are mid-career or senior journalists, we have seen plenty of cases where approaching the committee has not given a fair outcome. Remember that the people who harass women, it's often the young women who are being harassed by senior men. As you all know, and the bosses, the senior people, they have considerable clout in the organization. They have been there longer. And many more people are dependent on these bosses for their promotions and their assignments and everything. So it is difficult for anybody to speak out against those bosses. And when women are finally driven to speaking out against them, the complaints committee just does not deliver justice. So only 20% of the women who have faced some kind of harassment have actually gone and lodged a complaint, which shows a low trust. So look at the depth of the problem. First, in the majority of cases, there are either no committees or complete lack of awareness of committees. And even in those about 40%, 30% cases where there is a functional committee, women cannot trust these committees. And as you saw in the earlier slides, they are very unhappy with the outcome. So this is the system of our grievance redressal. And when you look at these systemic flaws, you can see plainly why Me Too happened. Me Too was extrajudicial, extra-institutional justice seeking, but it happened only because the institutions were so blatantly prejudiced. The next slide, please. And why are they prejudiced? If we try to think, that why do we find this kind of almost a kind of an obdurate ignoring of the law? And I find that this particular figure from another study, which was done in 2016 in 5 major metropolises, this particular slide is from Delhi. Here the question being asked is individual experience of harassment. Okay, not just whether it has happened to you, but whether you have experienced any kind of harassment in the office, whether you have seen. And men is 0%, 0. None of the men say that there has been any experience of harassment. Sorry, could we go back to that's, yeah. Whereas 43% of the women say that they have experienced some kind of. So there is a denial there is a plain denial. I mean, is it possible that 43% women in an organization have some experience of sexual harassment and all the men are completely unaware of it? I find it very difficult. And if we look at this is a survey result from Delhi, but even the other survey results from other cities are similar. They are not 0%, but for example, in Kolkata, it's about 7%. So 7% and 93%, whereas women's experience is completely different. Now, if the media houses are indifferent, the reason perhaps is that they are dominated by the male gaze, who believe that there is no such thing as sexual harassment. Though 50% or 43% or 36% women say that they have personally experienced it. So this is the politics. This is where we stand. The next slide, please. And this is something that I think our study, the SOM study, has brought out very well, which is that there is a tremendous backlash when you complain. The cost of complaining is very, very big. You know, you have to pay a huge price. So almost 39% of the survey respondents say that women just had to resign. I think most of us who are here today have known instances where women had to, just give up and move away. And many women actually prefer that rather than complaining when it gets absolutely intolerable, when they know that they cannot go on like this. They just resign and move away. I would once again like to stop here and invite your experiences, what you have seen. Have you seen women actually, changing jobs because of harassment? And do you think that they could have stayed? Was there a chance that she could have stayed rather than moving away? And whether any of you have also moved away. Sharda, would you like to come in?
Yes, Dev.
Have you ever known women moving away? You have worked in so many different places.
Yeah, in Odisha contest also. Like you have rightly said, I mean, we saw some of my contemporary women, like journalists, they faced the harassment in, she faced the harassment in her workplace, and she was pressurized to, quit the job. She quit she has left the job, and she had a lot of problem in her family. She was the earning member and all that. And she complained. She was quite a daring lady, so she went to the police station, women police station, and she lodged a complaint against the persons. And after that, the person gone absconding. Then this lady, she did not get a job for a long time.
Exactly.
And after a long time, whenever she was applying, they were saying that this lady has done so and so. They were like, she was a victim, but they behave like as if she has done everything, kind of thing.
She is the troublemaker.
Yes, she is the troublemaker. And after that, she did not get a job for a couple of years and all that. And then we intervene in this scenario. I know someone in where she had applied, so I personally called the owner and asked him, please, if there is any vacancy or opportunity, please give her. She is a very good sports reporter and all that. So luckily that owner get convinced with my words, because he knew me very well. And then she got through the job, and now she is working, with them. And there are also a lot of, cases you rightly pointed out that many cases we know that they are being harassed in their workplace, but they did not lodge any complaint, even if in a big channel like in vernacular channels in Odisha. Though they have the internal complaint committee, but as you said that the external complaint committee and internal both are they have good relation with the big bosses and all that. So most of the journalists, they first of all, the journalist in Odisha contest, I can say that 50% journalists don't what to say, identify that whether this is the workplace harassment or this is the as usual scenario in the media houses, right.
Exactly.
Yes. So even if they identified due to their livelihood crisis and all that, they did not dare to lodge any complaint, because in a fear to losing their jobs. And
Exactly. It is almost made out as if it is a condition.
Yes.
We will go into that. Thanks so much, Shada. Those were very helpful comments. And if friends, all of you, if you look at the third point in this slide, which is before you, this is exactly what Shada was saying, that the label of troublemaker is pasted on the woman. The woman gets a label that she is the troublemaker, and this impacts her future job prospects. In other words, she doesn't get a job. And we have in every city, I think we have seen examples of this, that a woman who resigned or protested or complained finds it very difficult. Often they have to accept a job with a lower pay, below her designation, below her pay grade. She has to accept another job just so she can work. And this is what puts, you can see the similarity between the film world, where this casting coach is supposed to be something, casting couch. You have to submit to predatory behavior of the producer or the director before you can ever hope to be cast in a film. So also in news media, we find it is widely practiced that if you're a young woman journalist looking for a job, this is almost normalized. And we will come to it in a few minutes, that what is the kind of cultural tropes that are built around sexual harassment to make it appear a normal thing. So, but I would just like to touch on the second point, which is that it's not just a loss of livelihood. And of course, nobody wants to lose a job, but it is also the trauma, the hostility, the humiliation. The woman becomes completely, nobody dares to side with the woman. It's unusual if other women or even other male colleagues support the woman. The boss or the senior persons immediately create a situation where they make it very clear that if you side with the women, then you are not in our favor. So lines are drawn, and the woman who has suffered sexual harassment finds herself alone. And if this is happening across cities, across countries, this is the pattern which involves, and this is exactly how patriarchy works. They make the crimes of patriarchy unspeakable, that you cannot even recognize it, just as women cannot admit domestic violence unless their lives are threatened or something. It is they're extremely ashamed to say that they're beaten up by their husbands. So also it is made into a matter of great shame to actually say that you are being harassed by your boss, abused by your boss, even raped by your boss. We have seen such cases. The Priya Ramani case against M.J. Akbar was one of rape. Her allegation was of rape. So we know that these things these things happen, but they are made to appear very shameful or trivial, or just individual instances which are not linked to each other. Some exceptions, but they are not exceptions. They are the pattern, and they are happening all across the world, actually, and they are very much so in India. So the whole thing about protesting against violence, I mean, we as women journalists are always writing about, women protesting against violence. These make positive stories. But are we being positive ourselves? Can we dare say what is happening to us? The next slide, please. So this is where I have identified these. I'm not borrowing these from anybody. I have identified that these are the things that we hear when we ask people, for example, that why don't you have an sexual harassment at work policy? And typically what we hear is, we are like a family. In this office, we are like a family. In this newspaper, we are a family. Why do we need such laws? We don't need a committee, we need a law. Here everybody is brother, sister. Okay, so that kind of a complete denial of what is, that it is even needed. Many people do it very self-righteous, very senior people. They say that we don't need the law. We are very comfortable here. So they imply an implicit trust. And we know that there is no reason to accept that. If you go and talk to the women of that organization, you'll get a very different picture, not a brother-sister picture. And then this quote, the days of MJ Akbar and Tarun Tejpal are over. These are Akbar and Tejpal were very important big editors of their respective organizations who were accused and had to Tejpal had to resign or step back, whatever. He recused himself, so to say, and Akbar was a minister when he was accused. But this sentence that the days of Akbar and Tejpal are over were actually told by an editor, one of the senior editors, when I presented this study, our song study before that. So even when faced with the fact, and our study was, remember, in 21, last year. So our facts were collected in 2019 and 2020. That was our data. But even so, these editors, they lie to themselves and to others, saying that those days are gone. We don't need to think about them anymore. And I was like, excuse me, you are wrong. This is happening now. This is not the past. This is very much the present. It is happening even while we speak. So this is a kind of denial that it doesn't happen. Then they say that, oh, it happens, but it happens elsewhere. It doesn't happen in my organization. So they will say that our newsroom has 50% women. And we have many women in senior posts. So how can sexual harassment happen in our place? The truth is that it can, and it is probably happening. Having a few women in few important posts does not prevent sexual harassment. And the third is what we have been talking about. Sarda was also saying that there is a process of normalizing abuse. Just this is the same that we see in domestic violence, that many women, the majority of the women interviewed in the National Family Health Surveys, they say that men are quite justified in beating up their wives if they do not cook well or serve in time, or if she cannot manage the children or the home, then the man can do it. So you see that domestic violence is normalized. Beating up a woman is not seen as a behavior that has to be condemned. But so also we find that in media, the very fact that it is a woman who is seeking work, that she is seeking a job, a place in the public sphere. In India, it is still the belief is very ingrained that the right place for the woman is at home. And if she seeks, and home is safe for her, the public sphere, which is dangerous, is not even meant for her. So if she is to come into, if she chooses to come into the public sphere, then she has to deal with that danger as best as she can. The sphere, public sphere, is not going to change. She has to go. And if she wishes to, defend her dignity, then she should stay at home. Why is she working? And this is this is something that women have to face in every sphere of work, I think. But in media, I think it's particularly tragic that media, which calls out all other professions for all the misdeeds and the crimes and abuses that they do, that in that media itself, the men harbor exactly the same mentality. That abuse is natural. You have to, please, quote unquote, please your boss. And that if you can't take it, you should just leave. We often hear the word sati, that you cannot be in office and be a sati. That means you cannot be chaste if you are in the public place. And the other thing is, and this is something again that is a pattern that we have seen across all studies, that the most common form of sexual abuse or gender-based violence in the workplace is verbal abuse. So I think that, reporters and editors who are men, they almost deliberately use a lot of profanities when women are around. Or they may use it even like that, but they do not, and as you know, most of our profanities, in whichever language you are using, they have to do with sexuality, with women, with mothers and sisters. So it immediately makes women feel very, very uncomfortable. It immediately, puts her on the defensive and sort of silences her. And some women are so, those are stronger personalities who do not like being shut up, they start using the same language themselves. Or they feel very afraid to speak. In any case, the profanities are the verbal abuse is using sexual innuendos and sexually colored language, sexual violence laced language in conversations, ordinary conversations, in the workplace, in the reporting room, in the newsroom. It is something which really makes women very vulnerable. And this is something that I have found reporters defend with great vigor. They say that profanities is what, I have heard reporters saying that it is what makes our reports strong. You cannot have a proper language in reporters' rooms. So profanities is natural. So women should not take offense. And of course, the thing that, the excuse that many of us have heard most often, which is that the woman was asking for it. So if she was actually the one who was trying to have an affair with the boss, and now she is turning around and complaining. or it is said that she was lazy and inefficient, and the boss was only trying to, reprimand her to bring her to her senses, scold her basically for not doing her job well, and she has retaliated by making sexual accusations. So I have heard this so very often that when a woman, actually complains it against harassment, immediately one of the things she is told is, no, but no other woman is having a problem. Why are you having a problem? And so often it's a professional rivalry which turns into a sexual harassment case. So the young woman reporter who's upcoming, was doing very well, she is the one who is most likely to be pushed out. And sexual harassment is used to push her out. Now, once again, I would like to stop and ask all of you if anyone has anything to say. We are nearly at the end of the sexual harassment presentation. So if anybody has any inputs here, anything you have observed, anything you have experienced, any opinion that you may have.
Anyone from India or other neighboring countries? Any feedback?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
You're audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, Niranjani, I think. Please
Yeah.
go ahead.
This is Iban Kintimari.
Oh, hi. Yeah.
I am a journalist of the Shillong Times.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Shillong. So when we're talking about sexual harassment at workplace, I remember an incident that took place a few years ago here in Shillong. If you remember, an allegation was made against the governor, the ex-governor now, Mr. Shanmughathan, by a journalist. So I remember because clearly because of the fact that I was one of the the candidates who had applied for the post at Raj Bhavan, and there were a total of 5 women and 2 men. So from the moment we entered his chamber, because we were called one by one, um, we could sense there was an very uncomfortable feeling when you sit in that room. Though he was not alone, the commissioner secretary was sitting with him, but it was very like I said, uncomfortable, the way he talked to you, the way he he addressed you and all that. So basically that was the first impression I had of him, like personally. When we met him personally, that was the first impression. And days later, because the women in that group who went for the interview, like we had a WhatsApp group, and we used to chat. And one of the ladies, actually 2 of the ladies in that group, mentioned that the governor had called me, and then uh we had a one-on-one interview, and he said this and started touching me inappropriately and all that. So it was after that incident and after that conversation that one of a colleagues, a journalist, she thought that it was better if we can report this matter. And of course then the news came out, and there was the hue and cry across the state and the region. And basically the governor was removed from his post. So that was one such incident I have experienced, though I did not personally experience that inappropriate touching by
So
the governor and all.
in this case, did the the woman journalist, her organization stood by her?
Yes.
That's a very good thing. Yes.
Yes, they did. The entire press club stood by her, and then we had some women activists from the state as well, and the women commission also stepped in. That was in the year 2016 or 17, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yeah, by God grace, I have never experienced such an incident, such a harassment in the workplace. But I've known people, some of my friends who have gone through it, and like you had mentioned earlier, most of them never reported the incident because, number one, they don't want to lose their job. Number two, they care too much about their reputation and like what people would say about them and all that. So I'm just
Yes.
citing some
Yes.
of the experiences that I've in my career.
Of course. Wonderful. Thank you so much. But you are in Shillong Times. That means your editor is Patricia, right?
Yeah, Kong Patricia Mukim. Yes.
Patricia Mukim, of course. And perhaps one of the reasons why you have not faced any untoward incident within your organization is that you have a woman editor. So
Yes.
that is a big possibility. And also, I'm
Mhm.
very impressed that the press club, has shown such solidarity. That also is exceptional. And I wonder whether this is something that would happen in some of the other bigger states in India. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, it's so good to know that for once it is the offender, despite being in a high political influential position, had to go because a woman had complained about it, and rightly so. But this feeling of discomfort, this feeling of unease is something that we should take seriously.
Exactly.
This is something that I will be coming to in a few minutes. So thanks so much. Thanks for speaking.
Thank you.
Can we have the next slide, please? Right. So now many of us, unfortunately, also do not admit to ourselves that something is happening to us. This feeling of uneasiness, even when it happens, we try to ignore it or we try to justify it. So, and one of the things that we tell ourselves is that he didn't mean anything wrong. Okay, he said this and this was inappropriate, or he did this and that was not really how he should have touched me, but it's okay. I mean, we were just standing close together. Or he's like that, he's joking with everybody. So we make excuses for the other person, for the perpetrator, to ourselves. And this is how it goes on. Now, these are the things that I have learned from Samhita and other such organizations which deal with grievances. When the grievances come to them, they deal with it. So they know how these things can carry on. There's a typical pathway for harassment cases. And one of them is that women do not really admit to themselves and start making excuses for the man. Or we actually may believe that this person actually likes me. Okay, so he really likes me. That's why he's talking to me even at 12 at night, 2:30 at night. And then there are some of us who believe that it is happening and I don't like it, but what to do? This is how it is. If I have to work, I have to put up with it. Some of them lie to themselves saying that, okay, I'm leaving not because of this nonsense, but because I want to do something else. I want to do freelancing. There is one girl who actually told us in a results sharing meeting that I thought I was making my own choices when I left a paper, but now when I look back, I realized that I was escaping. I was not moving on. I was escaping. So it's only later in the day that we realize something which we should have realized then. So rather than doing something, rather than taking on that burden of seeking redressal, we just leave and we tell ourselves that no, I want to do freelance or I want to move on to something else. And then the other thing is that we lie to ourselves, we question ourselves. There's self-loathing, self-questioning, that nobody is having this problem. Why am I having it? Some of us think that if we just ignore, if we, okay, he's writing it and I'm sending a message saying, giving a thumb sign or some kind of emoji, hoping that, okay, if I don't take too much of notice, then he will understand that I'm not interested. And of course, there is this entire problem of complaining, that nobody will take you seriously, nobody will do anything about it, and you are only going to be pushed out or severely humiliated if you complain. So it's best not even to complain. As Sharda was saying, that there are cases happening everywhere, but women need to hang on to their jobs. So they just say nothing. So these are all things that we do to ourselves, thinking that we have no other way. But is that true, or are there some things that we can do? So the next slide, please. So these are some tips. I will never say that these are the only things that you can do. I will not even say that you can always do any of these with immunity, or that any of this is easy to do. But these are some cautionary points. Okay, some points of caution, some precaution that you can take, especially young journalists who are just entering, or mid-career journalists who are starting in a new workplace. There are some things which you have to keep in mind. First is that you have to admit that if you're feeling uneasy, then don't dismiss that feeling. It's probably reason for the uneasiness. We don't feel uneasy out of nothing. So accept it, that something is happening, and look at it closely. And many of us, women especially, we just we are so used to fulfilling other person's expectations from us. It's what we do at home. It's also what we tend to do in the office. So if somebody makes a joke, I don't like the joke, I think she is being crude and uncivil, but even so, I just send a smiley, or I send a thumbs up sign. Now, this is something that you should not do, because very often that the man, when he crosses limit and you turn around and accuse him, he would say, you had sent me a smiley, so I thought that you are enjoying this. Okay, so be very careful. It's when you see such a post, do not react in any way which may give an impression that you are complicit, that in some way you are in on the joke. Okay, even if you can't protest, you stay out, you stay non-combatant. And so also, this is very important, just as our friend from Shillong was saying, that everybody, the organization, the press club, everyone stood by the girl. That is why she could win her case. Solidarity is very important. Unfortunately, a lot of the time in an organization, all are young people, a certain generation of people, reporters, editors. There is, of course, a lot of professional competition among them. And if something is happening to one person, if one person is being, humiliated, dishonored, being pushed to a corner, others, because of the rivalry, sometimes tend not to react. But that is wrong. On these questions, you should have solidarity. In your personal life, in your professional life, you can have rivalry, but all women in an organization should try to show solidarity when a woman is seeking redressal. Now, do not go in. This is my advice. Do not go into who said what, who sent which message, where were they seen together, but he said this, but she did this. Don't go into all that. That is not for you to judge. all we have to say as women colleagues is that her complaint should be taken seriously and the proper method of redressal should be followed seriously. That is all we say. We are not in the business of saying who is right, who's wrong. But if somebody has filed a complaint, then that complaint should be seen to properly. Okay, so and stand by the woman. Just tell her that we are with you all the way. Anything you need, we are here to help with. Just give that impression. I think that if you think that you're taking that risk, taking a risk by supporting the woman, that is a risk worth taking. Okay, even if it is a bit of a risk, that risk is worth taking and it is not impossible. Many of us have taken the risk, as Sharda was saying. When she spoke to somebody recommending such a journalist, a woman journalist for work, she was also taking a risk. But it is a risk that is worth taking. So this is very important. Also, in case you are being hounded, anybody is being hounded, advise this girl to keep all the offensive posts. They should, our first reaction is to delete it. You know, we somehow feel that even our phone is being soiled, being made dirty with such remarks. But you should be disciplined. You should have a copy of it so that if your warnings do not work and you have to file a complaint, then you have proper documentation of your complaint. So we need to be a little more organized and disciplined when we do this. So also in ordinary, we need to change the culture. So in ordinary conversation, if somebody is trivializing sexual harassment, you say, oh, I can't even touch you, or I can't even make a comment, you will go and file a complaint about it. And you will need to say that, yes, if it is something offensive, then you know a complaint is the right thing. Or any effort to normalize, to justify, to trivialize sexual harassment has to be resisted, one way or the other. Don't smile back, don't nod your head, don't turn away, don't make another joke. Show that you are not with him. Your signals are very important. Remember that those who harass are always looking out for signals and they always attack the weaker people. Okay, so they are quite practiced in it. There are many serial offenders, and all of us know some of them. So be very careful that you do not come across as supporting this idea that sexual harassment is not a really big issue. So these are some of the things that I had to say. And this is time to wrap up this one and go to the next one. So I just pause for 2 minutes to see if anybody has anything else to say, to add to this, to examine this, to question this, if anyone has a comment. Yes, Sadda has raised a hand. You wish to
speak? Sometimes what happened, I have felt that it was not a phone calls, it was not a kind of something that you can take as an or so as an evidences, but it's my personal experience. We used to go to secretariat for this coverage and all that. It's long back. I would like to share. So that time, what happened? Only 2 or 3 journalists, women journalists, were there in television media, right?
Right.
And one very junior woman, photojournalist was also there. So being a national media person, I, occasionally, whenever there is a big issue, I used to go. But the local channels, the girls, they used to go. And what happened, they are in we waited for the chief minister to comment or to take the bites of the secretaries or something like that. So we have to wait, long hours in the secretariat. So what happened, there 2-3 senior persons were there. When they saw the women journalists have arrived, then they started, talking very slangs and very filthy languages among themselves. They are not saying anything to the women journalists, but you feel, I mean, once when I went there, I saw what is this, and the girl who was the photojournalist, she was very, discomfort with their conversation, and there she cannot move out because she had a camera, and she anytime the secretary comes and she has to take the interviews and all that. So she was in a situation, she neither can move anywhere nor can hear these things and all that. So one day I went there, and the same thing was, they were using such slangs and talking. They had a conversation among themselves. So I, as you said that you no need to respond to their in terms of or replying in terms of smiling or something like that. So I was just kept quiet and just staring them. So one of them, he said, Sharda, what happened? I said, you tell me what happened. Why are you asking me what happened? You tell me what happened. Why are you talking like this? He said, come on here, you all are a journalist. You are saying that you want equal rights, and in this way we are talking, very casually, and you are reacting to this. So I feel very bad. So in this situation, that time I could not, think what to tell him. And just I, by my body posture, I just, show my anger, and they kept quiet, and the things was like sorted out then and there. So this kind of situation, many journalists after that also, the new generation journalists, they were facing in the field, especially the television journalists. They are, they have to take the interviews. They are in a only 2 or 3 women journalists were there, and like lot of male persons were there. They have to go on the crowd and all that. So they are facing. So my point is that what I feel over the years, that most of the women journalists, they don't, they don't have the idea that what is uncomfortable to them and up to what degree, I mean, it is uncomfortable. Someone is using some filthy language among themselves. Does it make the journalists uncomfortable, and it is also counted as a harassment in the workplace or not? I mean, this kind of awareness also we need to create among the women journalists.
Very true. We need to create that awareness of what is acceptable and what is not, and that it is perfectly fine to not accept.
Yes.
The problem is that when we are young journalists just starting in the career in any profession,
Yes.
when you have just started, you want to fit in.
Yes.
Right? You want to be a part of whatever is happening. You don't want to stand out.
Yes.
You don't want to be singled out. You want to be one of the group.
Yes.
So this is why we put on, we actually put on, I mean, we just accept a lot of nonsense. So this is actually, I mean, you are staying out late, you are going out, with a group of men, which you ordinarily would not when you were in school or college. But because you're in office, you're staying out late, you're going out in groups, you can be going for coffee or
Yes.
a drink or whatever, all of which is very new.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes sexual harassment, and you don't know how to. We understand this, but the point is, I mean, thank you, Sharda, for giving a very good example, that just indicating that you are not happy, that you are not accepting it, that you are not willing to fit in, just that is enough. Often that is enough. Very often it is not. There are a few who will hound you. But in many situations, just an indication that you are not comfortable with whatever it is that they are trying to do is very, very important. Okay, so we have Aditi who has raised a hand. Aditi, come on, please.
Yeah. I just wanted to share a different example as well and understand how one can deal with. There was a case where a male member of a team complained against a woman leader, and the complaint was found invalid, and the male member had to leave. But the thing is, though the woman leader in that sense kind of won the case, but the atmosphere had already become against her, and it had become that she's a tough lady to work with, or young guys who work under her have had to leave because of the way she is, and so the atmosphere had already become like that. Whereas the complaint against her was investigated and found invalid. It was what I guess earlier also you mentioned, that the person was not working well and was trying to, I mean, in this case, that person was deliberately trying to
undermine her authority.
Undermine the woman leader because I guess he was not comfortable working under a woman or whatever the situation was. So he was trying to find other ways to get his way, and it was found invalid. But in that case, then the onus comes on that woman, even though it was her case was found in favor of her. It comes on the onus comes on her to continue to prove herself that she is worthy as a leader.
Right.
So how do you support someone in a situation like this? Because it's by law, I mean, by investigation, it's proven that she's right. But how do you?
So yeah, I mean, this is the same. This is the other phase that if I have complained against a male superior and I have found right, even then I will be isolated and humiliated. Right, the male superior might have had to resign, but suddenly everyone will turn on me and say that you destroyed the life of a man.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you do? The rest of us can only show solidarity, show confidence, and show not in private but in public. We have to walk up to this lady and say that let us go out for a cup of coffee, or we have to just sit or share our tiffin with them, our lunch with them. Okay, so this is the way of showing that she is not alone, that the attempts of isolating her are not working. That is what we need to show. So we have to just do our part. I mean, solidarity really pays, and I should also say that also very look at legal support, psychological support. Usually when you actually go and file a complaint, or somebody files a complaint against you, you are in for a long haul and a difficult haul. Okay, so one should not be afraid of seeking help. One should not hesitate to reach out. This is something wrong that we often sort of withdraw within ourselves, because we are too unsure of what people will say about us or what they will tell us. We are so afraid of unkind comments, caustic remarks, that we sort of go into a shell. And if you see this happening to others, then you have to intervene. Okay, you have to intervene and you have to gently make them feel a part of a community. Support is the one thing which makes the difference. This is why we organize, as women, we organize always so that we can support each other in difficult times like this. Okay, I would love to listen to others also, but I think we don't have much time. Online trolling is still waiting for us. Let's quickly go over it. And I want to hear experiences from those who are more digitally literate than I am. Can we start, please? The next part. This is the next slide.
Just a second.
It's a,
Just a second.
yeah, it's the same. It's the same presentation, just the latest slides.
Just a second. Just facing some difficulty.
Yeah, it's getting stuck, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so this is something that a slide that I put in because this has appealed to me, you know, that what we are also trying to find out is the truth. I mean, the truth of harassment is also a truth. And this single-minded devotion or abhyasa is something that we need to practice. This practice of admitting the truth to ourselves, that practice of telling truth to ourselves, not going to be easy. And in those difficult times, this is a man who can stand by us because he practiced telling inconvenient truths all his life. So the next slide, please. Yeah, we can start online trolling. I mean, the presentation on online trolling.
Just a second.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can use the time by, hearing your experiences of online trolling. Okay, right, it is here. I don't think we have anybody in our midst who believes that online trolling is not happening with women. But just to say that several reports, because it is a comparatively new phenomenon, right, on online trolling, that there has been a recognition that women journalists are disproportionately experiencing gender-related threats, harassment, and intimidation on the internet. So, in society generally, there has always been a tendency to silence women. In South Asian countries, our families believe that women should be silent. Women and children should be seen and not heard. The same thing is happening in the digital world. And one actually wonders why women are singled out. I mean, even when a man and a woman are equally saying the same kind of things, or expressing the same kind of opinion, why is it that the woman is being particularly targeted? Why is there even greater intolerance towards the woman? And the next slide here will show just how much. Please, let's go to the next slide, which is on Guardian. As you know, the Guardian newspaper. So the Guardian newspaper did a kind of a study on all the millions of messages that have been left, on its website, and identified the violent messages. Okay, and found out that the 10 most abused writers, 8 were women and 2 were Black men. So very clearly in the digital world, there is a reflection of the gender bias and the racism that we see in the real world. The next slide, please. I wonder why the slides are not moving from one to another. Just yeah. So, and this is, India is no different. It may be a little worse, but certainly it's not any better, because this particular survey by Feminism in India is a website for feminists, of course. And this is a study on violence online. And they found that, 60% women, they have experienced online harassment. And this was done in 2016. I think if you do it now, you will find 70%. It's quite possible. And that 28% reduced their presence online. So you can already see that there is an impact. There is an impact. The women actually, rather than voicing their opinion, they would prefer not to take on so much abuse and just remain silent. The next one, please. And one of the most, you know, who is one of the most abused persons, even if you take worldwide, is Maria Ressa, the woman journalist who this year won the Nobel Peace Prize. The kind of vitriol that she has faced, it was planned abuse. So, okay, so one of the worrying things about online abuse is that it doesn't just stay online. It tends to be offline also. So it starts from being just online threats, just messages, but you cannot ignore it as that, because 20% have been attacked or abused offline. So it starts online, then it spills over to the real world. This is what is so very dangerous. First, given threats, then the threats are carried out in the real. Next slide, please. So this is, as I was telling you, that Maria Ressa, who started, as you probably know, she's a Filipino, and she was her digital newspaper has protested and exposed how much extrajudicial killings were being done by the government in the name of dealing with drugs. So as soon as she started writing about it, exposing the killings, the murders of ordinary Filipinos, there was an online onslaught, regular assaults against her. So this is one of the messages which from early 2017, this is still there. And here I wish to say something. I mean, the entire world, journalists across the world were so very disturbed by the kind of violence that she was facing in the social media platforms. And she runs a digital newspaper. She has no scope of going on offline. So they seriously feared that she might be murdered, because another woman, woman journalist, was murdered, who also started getting these threats online. So, but Maria Ressa did something that was admirable. She turned it around. She started an investigative journalism, trying to trace the accounts from which these messages were sent. And she traced them back to the president. Okay, so Duterte. So she could actually reveal that the attacks on her were coming not from ordinary people, but from the ruling dispensation. And that itself was a story. So she took it and she turned it around. She could bite back. So that is something that, a model that we can follow, which is before us. It's not easy, but it has been done very successfully. The next one, please. Right. And so we need to look at how this is happening. See, the enormity of trolling is very disorienting. It's very disturbing. So this is some, and these are not, the trolls are not just individuals, as we all now know. I'm sure many of you know even better than me that there are apps, there are digital devices which are being used to generate almost endless comments, vitiating comments against particularly targeted women journalists, especially women journalists who have something to say, who speak out against the ruling dispensation. And this is from The Wire, which had uncovered this. This tech fog network, which there are about 10 women journalists who are like the top 10 getting all these trolled messages. And on top is a Rana Ayub. She's a Muslim, a woman, and who has exposed the Gujarat riots in her investigative journalist work. And Nidhi Razdan is also a member of SOM, and we know how badly she faced it. The next one, please. Rana has recently wrote in her column in the Washington Post how she felt about it. What is the kind of impact? I mean, she is extremely strong. She has been, writing, organizing, doing a lot of work. But even somebody as positive, as active as Rana still suffers from this sense of humiliation. You read these words and it really, you can feel the pain inside yourself. The next slide, please. So the Editors Guild of India, after this tech fog incident, the Editors Guild, which happened earlier this year itself, the Editors Guild of India has condemned this. And see, in this condemning message also, you find acknowledgement that it is particularly the women journalists who are facing online harassment. They are targeted, and organized online trolling, as well as threats of sexual abuse. So these are the things which, we have to face. And of course, this is what we will see in the next slide. And the Editors Guild of India has also made this political connection that those who are critical of the government are the ones who are facing the greatest onslaught. So we have to see, this is where, you see a clear political connection between online trolling, which also has a very, very sexual component, because it is explicitly sexual in its messages and explicitly violent in its messages. And with that, you can relate the political polarization. As for what are some of the ways in which you can fight back, I have put here a page from a report which was put together by the IFJ, because I think that it has many helpful tips to offer. So one is that ignore, of course, what they mean is that you do not let it affect you. Not that you don't take any action, but you should not believe what are the things that are being said against you. So that is ignoring. Then you filter it. You have to be very aware of the ways in which you can use your social media platform so that the messages can be filtered. You need to block, and also you need to report. So each of these social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they have their own ways of, putting in a complaint. And we need to learn those ways. They are easy, and use them. Though there are reports which says that Facebook is the weakest. It does the least to ensure the security of women journalists. Others slightly better. But this is something that we need to do. We need to report. We should not do anything. There is action that we need to take. So the other things that we need to do is that you need to go to the police station to register it as cybercrime. It is a crime. It is hate crime, hate speech. So which is being given in a digital platform. So you need to register that. When you are getting hateful tweets, then you can name and shame. If you can identify the individual, just go and say that this is a person who has said this. And that has worked for many people. Tell others, do not become quiet. If you become quiet, if you become silent, if you do not pursue your opinion any further, then the troll is winning. Why should you let the troll win? The troll doesn't win, you win. So do not become mute. You should unmute yourself and mute the troll. And if use everything possible to mute the troll, but even then there will be some trolls shouting out, let them shout. Imagine if Maria Reza in 2016 or 17 had become silent because of all this online assault. If she had feared for her safety and kept quiet, then today we would have lost one of the most important voices in media, a voice which is worthy of a peace Nobel. So that itself, I think, is a very, very big example to us. I know that in the last 4 years, 4-5 years, Maria Reza had been using every possible platform to speak out against online assaults and to say how the digital platforms are becoming vicious and full of untruths, full of lies. And she has used her own example. I think that if we follow that example before us, that idea that we keep before us, then we do have something to look forward to out of this mess. This is violent. This is one of the worst crimes. This is just that, this patriarchy can do to silence women. But we have not so far, we women, we have not fallen for all these tricks. And even with all trolling, we will not put up with it. We will not be silenced by it. A woman journalist becoming silent is a risk for all women, not just for her as an individual, not even for media as a profession, but for all women, each and every woman in the world. So it is not a difficult, it is difficult, it is not easy. We cannot say that this is an easy thing and we will just do it. We will have to fight inside and out. When someone even sees an angry word, it's so difficult. We immediately cringe. That we have to fight that. And for that, we need to be together so that we can fight together. It is not possible to fight alone. You cannot go very far. This is why we need associations, we need networks, we need organizations, we need platforms for women, and especially for women journalists, so that we can keep talking. This is where I will end today. And I invite the comments and observations from all of you.
We have a comment in the chat box from Ms. Dilrukshi Handuneti, who was the first trainer of our first webinar.
Right.
She mentioned Niranjani Roland, who is one of the participants and present today with us. She played a big role in designing the Bite Back campaign.
Okay, how nice. Why don't you tell us about it, Niranjani? We would love to hear from you.
With this International Federation of Journalists, IFJ, we had a conference in Nepal, and there we decide to many men journalists will share their experience. They come across this online bullying, so we decided to have this campaign. It's called the Bite Back. I are involved in Sri Lanka. I was involved in that. So in my case, I interviewed the victims who come across this online bullying, and we did these videos, the post, and we shared we did the 1 month online campaign with their experience online. So in all of this Asia Pacific journalists, all the women journalists, we all got together, and I also participated in that event.
Niranjani, why can't we see you? Can't you put the video on for one moment, please?
Sure.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
You know, the Bite Back is a really wonderful resource, and I hope that Kutch will circulate it among all the participants who are here today.
Yeah.
Bill has sent me a copy, and I can forward it to Sucharita so that she circulates among all the participants.
Yeah, with my experience with the Sri Lankan the journalists and the other women in online bullying, the thing is they don't know how to report it. So I mean, I also do some training for them. Then I teach them, take a screenshot and keep that with him, because when you go for these things, we don't have the documentation.
Exactly.
There's a lack of documentation issues. So that's why now we educate the women. When you come across this, you have to keep all these screenshot and all. And because there are now several, even Sri Lanka cybercrime, they have some CID, they have the unit. Even Sri Lanka, some laws are there, but these women, they don't have the knowledge on that. So I think because of that also, this type of the online bullying, this incident is not reported properly.
Right. And Aditi has also mentioned an important point, that some of the actions can be done by others. Exactly. And this other can be a legal action forum or a journalist action. We do hope the press clubs will wake up to it and do something. So I absolutely agree with you. It doesn't always have to be the victim. Anyone else?
Aditi, would you like to add something?
Yeah, adding to what you said, I wanted to add that even a smallest thing like reporting on social media, which we can do in a minute, can be done by anyone. Like if you see a comment on someone else's Twitter or something like that, you can go and report that comment. It takes hardly a minute, and or even a few seconds, and that's the easiest way of showing solidarity, I think.
That's right. What about any other journalists who want to speak?
Hi, ma'am. Can I speak?
Of course.
I'll just put on mute. So, but among all these, I've just noticed that even if it's trolling, it hasn't happened to me. I am facing a different problem because my Instagram profile has been impersonated I don't know how many times, and those fake IDs have been sending indecent messages to my male followers, friends. So that's a different topic. But the thing that
it's
the police
not
does
actually,
not do anything.
according to Niranjani, it is the same. Impersonation is also a part of cyber of trolling.
Of course.
Yes.
But ma'am, the point is that the police is not doing anything. I filed a complaint on the National Cybercrime Portal also with the local Thana also, but I hardly see any activity from them. So, and this is this is perennial. This is a perennial problem with others also who are facing similar problems, I guess. So the law has to be somehow, I don't know about, I'm talking about my country and my local administration, but they don't react. They are hardly responsive.
Yeah, very true. Cybercrime, no redressal. I have never found anybody getting any kind of, unless they're very high profile cases.
Very high profile. If they have a verified account, then maybe something happens. But otherwise,
let's do a story on that.
Yeah. And I must say that I was with the Telegraph for 12 years. And personally, that has been the safest place on earth, I suppose. I was the only woman working for a very long time, but thankfully I've never faced such things in my work life. So I'm the lucky one, maybe that way, in workplace.
Good. You're lucky.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you, Hunter. In Sri Lanka also the same problem, right? We have the law and all, but the implementation process is lacking, right? There's an organization called CERT, right? When there's videos upload in the Facebook and all, they can remove that. When we complain, they can remove that. But the legal part should do by this police and all. No, this police people, there's a unit, but they are very lacking online the knowledge. So because of that also this complaint, when people are complaining, the step is not taken quickly. So that also there.
Very true. And the problem is you go and tell them your problem and they come back with their problems. We don't have this, we don't have that. This is no permission.
The problem
for this.
is we don't have manpower, we don't have the resources, logo ki kami hai. This is the thing that
we don't have permission for this and that. So I come back with a earful of their problems. It's hardly any. This is something we have to fight, but we can only. I think that with online trolling, we should do another Me Too. I mean, I think Me Too has shown us the way to how to deal with online trolling. We should really name and shame them. I completely agree with Niranjani and her team there. They're so good to see you.
Thank you, Shruti. I was here all along.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, please, of course, please.
So just want to amplify what Niranjani and Nantara both said. And I think it's kind of universal that our complaints mechanisms and our redressal mechanisms are really slow and they don't deliver justice. And one of the bad outcomes of this is that women have also complained about systemic abuse where they are not getting justice and therefore they're vulnerable and also 50% of statistically in Sri Lanka or 67% of women did not want to go and complain in the first place because of the systemic issues of lacking manpower, lacking something else. So you don't feel encouraged enough to go and complain. And then they also know the kind of questioning that they have to face, particularly with the police, that you feel twice abused.
Exactly.
Yet again, trying to seek justice, or abused all over again.
Agreed.
So one of the better responses through the bite back and learnings is that women have come together and not to bite back in that sense, but bite back differently, where if one is getting trolled, it's about solidarity. Others can actually counter it as decently as possible. You don't have to really be sinister. And there is a different way of men trolling and women trolling and responding. It's highly gendered, as we all know. And in that, a collective of women responding in defense of another colleague has actually borne results. So I think these are small things we can do and do it well. Thanks.
Are there platforms, Dil and Niranjani, I'm asking that, are there platforms which are working on, online trolling, seeking redressal for online, like, alt news, if there is a fake news, we can ask them to verify whether it is fake. Is there something that helps victims of online trolling? Any organization?
Locally,
yes,
there are
yeah.
small organizations.
Locally.
In India, there are. But
In India.
but the thing is, I think it's an enormous volume, Shruti. I think the volume
Yeah.
is so much.
That
you know,
is that
it
is the
cannot
only
be-
problem. There are platforms, even I know a couple of them, I volunteer with them, but the problem is they have one very genuine problem that, for me, like my problem, they say that the Facebook Instagram server is in the US and there are millions of complaints every day. So, it goes haywire, what to see, when to see, and how many complaints retrieval will they do in one day. So it takes much time to actually,
So
find the
since we are
ID.
partnering with the US consulate, maybe they can find us a partner there so that, just because it is in the US, I mean, it's US, not Mars. So why should we not get somebody to look at the servers for us, partner for us? We know, for example, that some organizations in the US have partnered for the Pegasus spyware scam to show that those were installed in the phones of journalists here and activists here. So I think that these kinds of partnerships will become increasingly more essential. That's probably the way to go.
And it has to be quick because on cyber platforms, the link is activated, they troll or they do whatever, and then it's deactivated after a
Right,
couple of hours.
right.
So then with me, it happens almost every week. So it gets activated at 11 at night and deactivated by 3 a.m. in the morning. So the whole drama is about 4 hours at night when nobody's available.
And how
So
many
then they say-
messages do you typically get during
No,
that time?
my problem is I start getting calls from my friends that there's a fake ID, and the fake ID actually, starts talking very indecently to people. And there's a pattern, there's a very set pattern that the person will ask my male friends whether we were closer, have we ever been intimate. So this is not how a person speaks usually.
Of course.
So that is the thing. Now people block or report, but the unknown ones,
Of
the
course,
followers,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
they don't know. They will think I'm like that.
Right,
So
right.
that is one issue.
What a way of maligning
Yeah.
people. Okay, Sucharita, should
Yeah, there are a
we?
couple of suggestions from Dilrukshi and Aditi, suggestions of
Yes.
websites and portals where we can further look into for support.
Yes. And I request you to circulate these resources along with the bite back report in PDF to all our participants today.
Sure, we will do that. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really a very informative session. Yeah, I think some very thin topics that we are probably not very comfortable talking about, but these are very crucial. Wherever we are working in every workplace, whichever profession we are into, this is the basics that we have to learn very first and learn how to deal with this hurdle. So thank you so much. And it was very inclusive session, I must say, that because we have been getting feedbacks and questions from the participants. And thank you so much, Rukshi. Thank you for taking out your time to join this session as well. And I also thank all the participants. We will get back to you shortly with two things. Number one is a set of documents that Dr. Bhattacharya suggested. So we will be circulating a set of documents for your perusal. And the second thing will be the date for the next session that we are planning to do.